Fine. Uh, Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Thank you. First of all, thank you for joining our session today on Azure Talk. As you know, Azure Talk is a community group for Azure, and we have been conducting sessions in past on Azure. And it's a while, I think it's more than 8 months that we have been conducting these sessions, and every week, every Saturday, we conduct the sessions. And we have decided not very long ago that we'll split our sessions in advanced series session and for the beginners series session. And we have and since then we have been doing the beginner series sessions. So today is the fourth session, and in total this is, I think, 33rd session on Azure Talk, but in beginner series this is a session 4. In case if you have missed our earlier sessions, please feel free to check out our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/c/Azure Talk. In case you want to head out there, you can go and check it out. Additionally, you can also register on our website, which is www.cloudeasy.com, so that you can receive a meeting invite for our future events, future sessions that we will conduct, and you will receive those invites. And if you're already not a member of our Telegram group, which is like instant messenger Telegram group, which we have, where we discuss questions and answers, scenarios, and all the problems and the challenges that we are facing in Azure. We discuss those in real time. We have a lot of participants, and we answer those questions for you. So please feel free to join our Azure Talk Telegram group, which is t.me/Azure Talk. Please feel free to join there, post your questions for learning purpose, and anything that you wish to do. For quality's sake, and I really apologize in advance that I have muted the participants so that we maintain the highest quality of recording. And in case you have any questions, please feel free to type in the chat, and we will be more than happy to answer those questions in the chat. Or we will also, if you really need to speak up, let us know, and we will unmute yourself, and we'll take your questions. So with that, we'll get into the agenda. So today I'm joined by Lalit Rawat. As you know, Lalit has been in the our Azure Talk community forum and has been answering a lot of questions. So Lalit is manager IT cloud. He works for Bajaj, and he was chosen Azure Master of the Month, consecutive Azure Master of the Month. And if you want, really, you can follow him on Twitter, which is Lalit01 Rawat. As far as I'm concerned, my name is Neeraj Kumar. I know we have been conducting this session, so I am cloud architect, and I work for one of the financial audit firm, and I work in capacity of lead Azure architect, and I do a lot of work on Azure. For last 8 years, I have been working in cloud, especially last 3 years. I've worked extensively on Azure on public cloud side and as well as AWS. With that, and having said that, I'm also an MCT, Microsoft Certified Trainer. So I've been MCT, probably you would have seen, for almost 10, 12 years now. So Microsoft has also sent me an anniversary gift for my 10th year this year. That this is my 10th year of being an MCT. With that, I will, move into the agenda. So today's agenda, I probably will go deeper into the agenda side, where Lalit is gonna walk us through the entire agenda, and plus also we will have Q&A, and we'll also have a demo for each of these agenda items. So I'll move on to the detailed agenda. So in nutshell, what are we going to talk about today? So we are going to talk about some of the new features which Microsoft has introduced in related to Azure VM or the compute segment. We'll talk about Azure VM inventory. So obviously I will not steal the thunder from Lalit, and I will let him introduce all these features, but just high level, we'll talk about Azure VM inventory, which really is a way to your put all your VMs all together into an inventory, and you can keep a track of that. We'll also talk about change tracking, like how to make sure that if you have made any changes to the environment, those get tracked, and those changes can be reported. And if you really want to make sure that any change inside the VM is trackable, so that's a change tracking. Update management. So now Microsoft offers you will not require your own SCCM infrastructure to update VMs or satellite proxy for Linux. You can use Microsoft Update Management feature, which is out of the box, and you can use that. So for that, you will not require any kind of patching infrastructure for that. So we'll talk about that. And then finally, we'll also talk about the disaster recovery options that we have in Azure. So, disaster recovery from the VM blade itself. So obviously we know we have Azure Site Recovery, but now VM blade also offers the disaster recovery options. So Lalit is going to talk about that, and we'll finally then we'll get into the VM scaling and the different options that how could you scale out and scale in your VM. So we'll talk about those settings in terms of the different options that you have for VM. We'll talk about that, and finally we'll get into the networking section where we'll talk about how to enable NSG. And subsequently we'll take your questions and answers, and please feel free to post your questions in the chat, and we'll also look at the demo. With that, I will hand it over to Lalit to walk us through the entire session. Lalit, over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Neeraj, for being an introduction, and it's been thank you so much for joining all of the members, and it's been our 33rd session, or also 34th session, which we are going in. For beginners, it's been just a fourth session, which is continuously on VMs and how you're going to manage those VMs, and what are the new features and the things which is Microsoft has enabled the new preview features, which is change tracking, update management, and Azure Site Recovery, DR, and the backup, and couple more other sessions that how you're going in upgrade and downgrade your VMs so to save your cost, and couple more other options which we are talking about. So let's start with the change tracking and the update management. So basically, what is the change tracking? So let's say earlier, what about when we have a VMs that couple of our people they're saying, okay, someone has installed software. We even didn't know what software is got installed. So when you enable this change tracking, what will happen? Like whenever the software been installed, and that will give you a report of 24 hours. So what it will do is it will just go and check. The services will go, the monitoring agent which is enabled with the OMS, so it will just go and check those new changes which is happening. Either it could be in the registry, or it could be their software changes, anything which is related to in that particular VM, identify, and which will help you to operate your operations and manage your operations, which will really a good features Microsoft has, and releases in the preview, and which from the portal itself you just go and walk through it, and you will be able to view that what are the files, the Windows registry, and the software which has got changed and all. So it's been like your operations issues which is coming now, that you don't know. Someone has restarted the VM from the OS. You are given to your application team or your dev team or any team, but you don't know about the changes. Who did it? The portal. If someone do it from the portal, their log should be there in the activity log. But what become if it is do it from the VM, then you have to go into the Windows event logs, and you have to find it out those logs. Okay, so those are the things you have to be there. And apart from that, when the change request, the screen which you have, the screenshot which I have put, that how you're going to enable the change request when the VM, which I'll show it in the demo. Just you need to create on the change tracking, which is there, and the requirement which you have to follow. So you need an automation account, you need a location, so those logs and everything would be stored. It will log analytical ID, it will take log analytics workspace ID and your location, and then you have to choose an automation account. If you don't have any automation account, then you have to click and enable. Once you click and enable, the deployment will start, and then it will take hardly 10 to 15 minutes. And then once the change tracking is enabled, it will start collecting the data. So it will take some time. So let's move to the another option which is called an update management. What is this update management overall? Let's say, and Microsoft is always says that update management or the patch management both are same in case of Azure, because whatever the patches has been released, the critical patches has been released for Azure operating systems, or the update critical or the security or .NET framework or any patches which is released, you have to connect to your SSM server, download and report, and each and everything you have to do it. But now, when this feature has been enabled, you can just click in your VMs and you will be able to view what are the patches has been released and what are the patches you wanted to install, what are the compliance which you have to meet. Those are the things which is there for you, and you just go and collect those logs, so you can download or you can copy, and for server wise VMs for your compliance prospect, which okay, these are the things which is really I needed to install the patches and all. So what will happen, like how the patch management works? So basically, you'll receive an update through OMS. The OMS agent would be installed in your VMs. Once it is installed, it will just check the deployment. So basically, if it is the OMS Windows agent, then it will just connect over there. Then it will run those things, updates and prerequisite, and then it will connect to your hybrid runbook. And then once you click on apply those patches, pre-step updates, and then post-step. So basically, it's a step by step, which is you can just perform those patches and you can apply those patches. Whatever the patches, you can select those patches and you can apply those patches through update management. This feature has been released and long back, almost 6 months back, but it is a part of OMS. It's never comes as a Windows VM feature. It is a part of OMS update management, when you just configure your update management through OMS operating operation manager suite and other modules also. So it's a part of that. But now that features is enabled in each and every VM which is going and connecting to your subscription, and then you don't need to check the OMS dashboard, create an OMS dashboard. Rather than you need in all the servers to be connected over here, you can do that. But make sure that you can just go and update, enable those things, and then you will be able to view those things in your the changes which is there, the change tracking, the update management which is there, the same VM, what are the changes in the update management patches you have. So yes, do you want to add something over here?
No, I mean, yeah, so you have explained it well. So, I think as far as change management, change tracking, and update management is concerned, it's basically the change tracking is when you have performed any changes and you really want to see those changes, right? And in terms of the update management, as you rightly pointed out, it's part of OMS, and with OMS you can make sure that you have that agent is running on your VM, and that agent will make sure that it has applied the Windows update for your VMs. And you can also configure you can do the assessment. Obviously, if you want to do the assessment of these patches or the updates, that you can log into OMS dashboard, OMS portal, and from there you can deploy or you want to schedule, you can also do that, those schedule, if you really want to do that. If not, then you just want to simply update your VMs. That feature is also there. You can just do it from the VM portal, VM blades.
Right, Nijas. So let's move to the next slide. Okay. So the next slide is really an important, which is the inventory collection and the Azure backup. So how your inventory would work, what are the things which is associated, and what are the things would be there. So when you enable that inventory tracking for your virtual machine resources, so even though you can manage your complete Azure inventory once you enable these features. Even this is also a part of OMS, but this feature is in preview. So what it will provide you? It will provide you the user-based or the web-based features, which you can track your complete inventory from your VMs. Like you have to enable those things, so it will just go and register with the OMS, and it will be showing in your dashboard. So it will show it to you what are the IP addresses and public IP is there, what are the other features would be there, what are the software are there, what are the licensing, and other apart from that couple more other features which will be showing to you, and it will be the configuring the web user base, and it will collect the complete configuration of your VMs inventory and each and how you're going to enable this those things, the interface which you're getting. Earlier, this option is not there. The people are saying that I have 100 VMs, I don't have inventory. I have to manually manage it. But how you wanted to manage it? But now the features which Microsoft has releases, which is called an inventory collection, it's really help you to, at least for VM instances size, what it will do is just collect all the instances, all the requirement which you needed, and it will put it to your dashboard, and you can export those reports, or it will give you a graphical reports which you can integrate with your OMS, and you do a lot more things which it will show you that okay, what are the updates are has to pending, and couple more other things, the logs, what is going to be changed and all. So it's really been again, it will be the same as in change and the update, that you have to select a location, log analytics workspace, and then automation ID which you have to create it. Either it could be an automatically, or it could be your the automation account which you wanted to create it. So for all those requests, they need them to create an automation account. So what automation account is here? The automation account is nothing but it is providing you the authentication to the services which is going and connecting to your automation script which is running to your VMs frequently and collecting the data, which is basically authorizing that agent to go and run that script and collect the data. And log analytics workspace is nothing but it is a feature where your logs, all the logs would be stored, the VMs and related logs and everything would be stored. So if anything, any data which needs to be taken from the log analytics, it will take it. The location where you have deployed in the VM. So basically, these are the main features which you wanted to make sure that whenever you are configuring any inventory change or anything, which should be it should be automatically uh, with your proper automation account and the log analytics workspace ID, which where you can go and connect your things. So how you're going in and enabling it. And let's come to the backup, as we almost all of the members, we know what backup is does and how the backup services is working.
Lalit,
And
there is a question from Deepak, and she's asking. Okay, so he wanted me to unmute himself. Okay, so let me go ahead and do that. Deepak Singh Negi. I see two Deepak Singh Negi. Which one I unmute? All right, go ahead, Deepak, with your question. I unmuted. You have to unmute yourself from your intro.
Okay. Hi, Neeraj and Lalit.
Hey, Deepak.
hey Deepak.
Yeah, I'm audible, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, Lalit, you were talking about the like change tracking, right, and the update management, right? So, I just want to understand how this change tracking is different from the log analytics. Are we going to achieve the same thing which you are going to get in the log analytics? Like, what are the changes in happening my systems, or it is a different from that?
So basically, what log analytics does it, whatever the changes are happening to your subscription, from the subscription level, if you wanted to, just go and start your VM.
Hmm.
Okay, those logs would be created, and that logs are going to stored into your log analytics where you are going and analyzing. But if someone has installed some software in your VMs, how subscription can monitor? Because these are the changes which is done in the OS level, right? So for those OS level changes, what is going to be in the OS level? So what will happen, right? OMS agent, when you enable these features, OMS agents go get installed in your uh, OS, and whenever some changes would be there, so it will reflect. If you
So
install a new software, it will show that when you just click on the change request, it will show that new software has been
to
installed when
answer,
it has been installed.
yeah, to
So
Deepak, to answer
so
your
so the
question, to answer your question, I mean, this update management, oh sorry, or the change tracking, it piggybacks on OMS, right? Without OMS, it will not work. And but the way it works is with OMS, you could have tracked Azure Activity Log. Actually, earlier it was there, where you can see who has created VM, who has deleted VM, who has created a patch SQL. Now with this change tracking, this is for a VM, as in what has happened, as Lalit rightly pointed, what has happened inside the operating system. But again, it ties back to OMS. It goes to OMS workspace. Ultimately, it will end up in your log analytics portal, and you can see that into the portal also in terms of your Windows tracking. But
Okay. And now what about the update management? See, normally what update management wants to do here.
Well, update management is for applying any patches on your VM, right? So it will do a semi work that probably SCCM does it, and OMS also has update management, which is available if you really want to. So configuration management is a part of OMS. So somewhere like this also ties back into. So all these features that we are talking about probably like is part of OMS, but now all these features you can enable using the VM blade itself. You don't have to go anywhere at all. Now it is part of VM properties, and you can
Okay.
do that.
Okay. Okay. Right. So same pricing will be charged to customer, right? What was charges earlier, right?
Uh,
uh,
Go ahead, Lily.
that can be depends like how much data the data would be collecting, and then the data flow which we are utilizing
Yeah,
for
I
the
think
result.
it will be same charges based on the OMS plan that you have bought. I think if I'm not mistaken, 500 MB is free, to begin with that, but eventually it's the charges is based on the data that's getting collected and analyzed.
Like
So
change management, sorry, update management, change tracking, inventory, both. So all these features are using the OMS at the background.
correct,
Am I right?
right.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
let's move on. Thank you. Go ahead, Lalit. We'll talk about Azure backup.
Yeah, so if you just we can talk about the Azure backup. As I think almost all the participants know, okay, what is Azure backup? The services will does is take the complete backup of your VMs, which is all the VMs, whatever the hard disk would be there, the data would be there. So it will just take the OS level image backup, the complete VM backup, and restore to the vault. So how those VMs, the backup agent services will work. So what will happen, like whenever you just enable the backup from the VM, either you can enable it. There is a two-way that you can enable the backup. Either you can just go to the VM and click on the backup services which is there, and then if you have a backup vault, you just add those VM into the backup vault, then automatically the backup agent will be installed in your VM, and then once it is installed, that whatever that policies you wanted to apply, you apply those policies, and then you just enable it. But what will happen from the recovery vault? Recovery vault is just you have to discover your Azure VMs and have to enable it. So that options would be there. Rather than you just go to the recovery vault, you have an option in your VM blade or just nearest to all the options would be itself in the VM's properties where you just go and enable it. So once the backup services you enable, the VM agent would be get installed, will take a snapshot, and it will cover all the OS disk, resource disk, data disk, and data end disk, and it will start and transferring the data to the recovery vault. So once it will collect all the data to the VMs and all, then it will send and transfer all the data to the recovery vault where your recovery vault has been created would be in the same location. So it will be, again your data would be storing into the Microsoft bank, but it will be in the storage account. Okay. So make sure that all the data and the agents, everything would be there. So if something goes wrong or you're not able to take the backup, then Microsoft has a couple of troubleshooting steps which you need to perform. So like might be the backup services it is not getting connected, and there might be an issue like you can say as a couple of other issues. The network services has went down, or the agent has got corrupted, or probably there is a problem with the port. So a couple of other issues which have a troubleshooting steps which we can perform based on the Microsoft article. The documents is really nice. It is so you can do that. So it is a direct features of the VMs. Yes, would you like to add?
No, I think you covered it really well. So let's move on to the next line.
So it is the another features which is Azure VMDR, which is enabled only for unmanaged disk for now. For managed disk it is not enabled. But so what this option does, it like earlier we have in Hyper-V and VMware and on-premises to Azure using DR, directory services recovery vault, which we can directly install those and services and the process manager and the master server and everything, and we can just go and migrate our data or the VMs completely to the on-premises. But Microsoft doesn't have these features in Azure. So how you can set up once the VMs has been migrated to on-premises to Azure, or you have hundreds of VMs in Azure. So how you can make a DR strategy for Azure. So here Microsoft provided like is enabled the DR preview features, which you can directly click on the portal and you will be able to make a DR drill for your VMs to the another. So what are the options you have to select? So once you enable the applications, it will ask what are the storage account, the sources from your VMs, and then to ask the source location, which is the East US, then the virtual machine deployment, the resource group, and which resource group it is there. So the same data would be going and replicating. And apart from that, if you can see in the map, so basically there is a pairing. The region pairing would be there. So if it is in central India, it will go to the south India. If it is in West India, it will go to like East US to West US, West US to East US, West US to like the Central India. Like depends, like what are the pairings based on the Microsoft. So your data would be directly routed over there. If it is in India region, where in which location you want it, send your DR and the replications. Yes, please.
Yeah, so I think this is you're referring more on the line of the paired region. The Microsoft has paired region for each of Azure regions. So, for example, US North Central has US South Central has its paired region. So that's where it will show you the options, which is the paired region as a preferred option, because in case there is a DR, disaster recovery, Microsoft itself will fail over to those paired regions. So it's always a good strategy when you're building a DR to choose a region which is in paired region, because it will go organically with Microsoft failover strategy as well. Because if something happens to the entire region for Microsoft, they will also fail over to its paired regions. So just keep that in mind.
Thank you, Neeraj. So that's it from my end in this particular slide as how this is going to help, and what like as a down there is one more snapshot that you can select your applications or the VMs, choose the target region, and select the application settings, and you are set. So just 4 steps process for your DR, and your complete DR would be done. So let's say talking about the Azure VM scaling, I didn't add any snapshot because Azure scaling would be, I'll cover up more into the demo part, that how you can, scale up, scale down. Let's say if you create a VM for A2 instance, but you let's say your compute performance is reaching in 100% or 90% over a month, and average would be an 80 or 85 or more than that. At that time, your application owner or let's say your infra owner, so whoever it is, they're complaining that my VMC is having a less space and the performing not is not performing well. What you can do in that time, like you just suggest them that we can increase two instance up, so we can, let's say you can decide it, okay, you wanted to go in D series or E series, you can do that also. So basically you are improvising. Let's say you just created and somehow someone has came, okay, they say that I need in 112 GB RAM and then with 84 core CPU, but when you realize, okay, that he's not utilizing even half of their compute resources, and you are paying in bills in lakhs, at that time, what you can do, that you wanted to reduce those instances, reduce, ask them, okay, you're paying much bill and this is my analysis. So what will happen? Like you can just go and talk to them and then ask them, okay, we are to reduce. So you can reduce it. So we are saving the cost from customer perspective, we're saving the cost from the company perspective. So this is helping you much to the operational side for the cost redundant, and then a couple more other features which is there. So utilizing the resources, this is helping you. Yes, Neeraj.
Yep, good. I think we can move on to the next slide.
Now we talk about the network security group. What is network security group? As we know about the NSG, which is contains the list of your security rules. Which traffic do you want to allow? Which traffic you wanted to deny? What are the packets you wanted to allow? Either TCP, UDP, whatever the things. So how it will work? Like you have an internet. From the internet, you're having a first layer called in Azure, where the DDoS attack would be happen. The second layer would be your endpoint. Endpoint is nothing but the services which is connecting to your VMs, which is the back end, which is called as an endpoint. And the third layer would be the virtual network isolation, and the third one would be the NSG and UDR, which is the NSG would be attached to your subnet, or it can be attached to your VM's network. Okay, so make sure, so there is two options. Either it will be attached to your VM, or either it could be your subnet. So as those NSGs coming as a part of VM. So if you can say you have some VMs which is in DMZ network, you wanted to allow some specific port only, and you wanted to deny all the ports. So what you can do is you can enable only those ports, source to destination IP address, or what port number 80 or 443, or if you're running in SQL Server, then 1433. So basically, those are the things which you can just go and enable it, and in the down days, and the features, how the energy will looks like. As you can see, the AzureTalk demo features would be there. Like in this, we have a network interface. This is AzureTalk demo 780, and then below are the NSGs, which is by default Microsoft deny. The priority would be 6500, and rest it will be allowed. The by default these are the energy would be there as per best practice of the Microsoft, but it will vary based on your organization rules, based on your organization security, based on your the security information team guidelines. It can be vary, so you can make the priority up, and you can deny 3000 or 4000, and then before that those rules you can allow. So basically, whatever the priority would be, define that which rules has to be allowed. Yes, yes.
Yeah, so as a part of NSG, when you create network security group, so you can think about NSG as a collection of rules, firewall rules you can think about. And NSG is, in a layman, is a firewall in Azure. So in real world, you will have your firewall. Similarly, NSG is equivalent of the firewall. And when you create any rules inside NSG, you have to specify the priority. So you need to keep in mind if there's a clash of priority, higher the number. The higher the number, lower the priority is. So which means you see 65,500 it says deny all inbound, that has the least priority. Anything which is lower than that number will override it. So remember this, the lower the priority, lower the number, higher the priority is. That's one thing. Then, obviously when you create a rule, NSG rule, there are certain sections, and which we covered more details in NSG. If you really want to, you can follow our networking sessions on Azure Talk. But in general, what you will specify a port, on which port your NSG rules is going to, work on and allow or deny. So that will be port of a specific protocol. For example, RDP has 3389 SSH, and the SQL has 1433, and so on. Right? So based on that, your protocol you'll define. Then finally, the important one is the source and destination. So source is where you specify that these are the VMs from which, or these are the, or internet could be also be the source. That I'm accepting the traffic, and finally the destination. So you got your port, you have got source and destination, and finally your action. It could be allow or it could be deny. So this is what typically constitute NSG rules, and you have multiple NSG rules inside a network security group. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah, so basically there's one question versus an inbound and outbound rule. So basically inbound rule, what are the traffic you wanted to allow to your VMs, and outbound, what are the traffics is going from your VMs. So basically this is the main difference between inbound and outbound. Let's say if you have two VMs, A and B, if you wanted to allow a VVM to be connected to the A, you have to enable those specific port for those services which traffics would be allowed to this VM. If you want the same things which you wanted from A to B, it should be an outbound rule, which is sending the traffic to the B.
Yeah. So inbound and outbound, just think from the perspective from where the traffic is originating. Right. So let's say if you have a VM, and that VM requires to go out to internet, right? So the traffic is originating from the VM, and if you're applying a rule on the VM network card, then you'll create an outbound rule so that it can go out to internet. But if the same server or some other server requests to receive traffic from internet, let's say it's a web server, and the traffic is originating from outside world, right? It's not originating on the server. So for the server, it is an inbound traffic. It's going to receive the traffic. So your source will be internet, and but destination will be your server, and then it will be inbound rule for your server. Okay, so that's how you can basically understand inbound and outbound.
Right, Neeraj. So basically, it's a sender and receiver, right?
Sure. Yep. I think that's it. So we have question and answers. So I see a lot of questions. So maybe I'll go ahead and unmute the participants, and we'll spend 5 minutes taking questions, and then after that we'll get into the demo. So I've unmuted the participants. You will have to unmute at your intro. So go ahead, and if you have any questions which we have not answered. So let's see. There's a question from Ravi Raj. Inventory, is it free or chargeable? Well, it's part of OMS, so as long as you're within the free tier, you're not exceeding 500 MB limit, I think that's if I'm not mistaken, it's free. But if you go and exceed that, then you pay the regular OMS charges. Alpesh has a question. Does it need reboot after installing the extension? OMS, I don't think it requires a reboot. Alpesh. So it's a dynamic.
Right. It doesn't require any reboots. Right.
Then
thank you.
Deepak has this Azure DR feature will use Azure for Azure to Azure. Deepak, I couldn't understand. If you could restate your question.
So Neeraj, what I was asking is that the Azure DR, right?
Mm-hmm.
The feature is basically used for if I want to create a DR in Azure one region to another region. Right?
Oh, you're talking about IS DR, so where you will failover one from one Azure region to other Azure region. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that feature is there for a while, but I think it's still in preview, public preview, wherein
Yep.
you can replicate your VM from one region to other region.
So
So
in this feature, like Azure DR, right, the same thing is going to happen at the background, right?
yeah, most probably yes, you're right, because it will also use the same technology to fail over. But earlier you had to create the complete plan. Now here, with one, you can enable it at the VM level. Just let's say you want to enable the DR for one VM, you can do that. And I think it is still in public preview, right, Lalit, if
Yes,
I'm not
correct. It's
mistaken.
in preview only.
Yeah,
Right. It's in preview, right?
correct.
Okay, so Neeraj and Lalit, I have one more question regarding the Azure backup, right? So let's suppose that I have an virtual machines like VMware virtual machines running on my on-premise, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to take a backup of the OS disk and the rest of the data disk, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if let's something goes wrong with the my virtual machines, right? Can I restore that same the date that backup to the same virtual machines, or I need to create a different virtual machines?
Uh, I think you can restore it to the same machine, but to be make sure that you will be using a backup management Azure backup management tool, which is enable that Azure VMware features, which is going and taking over there. But I haven't doubt, but I'll clear on that. But you can if you're taking the complete disk,
So
the OS
Lalit,
disk,
let
the
me
data disk,
rephrase my
that
question.
can be done. That can be restore if it is the VMs has got corrupted, or let's say if you have something, then you can directly restore it to the VMs. The data disk could be restored to the VMs, but I just need to check in part of OS how it will be, because for that, yeah, for that
Yeah.
in DR there is a feature that you can
So
roll back to your on premises either in Azure or the on premises, but backup need to be
no,
checked. Yes, please.
yeah, I think the question Deepak had is if I protected. Now it depends on how you're protecting, right? So if you're protecting at the VM level by installing an agent, right? So Azure Backup has an agent which you can install. Or additionally, you can also have Azure Backup Services running, which is part of DPM now, and you can install. So there are various ways to protect, and depending on what you chose, your recovery mechanism will be slightly different.
Right, Neeraj. So basically, if you're going and installing an VM backup agent in your uh, Hyper-V machine, that means you're just taking in files in the folder level of backup, whatever there. So you can directly restore to your VM once you can spin up another
Neeraj, what
VM.
I want is like whatever the virtual machine which is there on my on-premise, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to protect that virtual machine such a way that, right, if my virtual machine get crashed in future, right,
Mm-hmm.
through that backup, I can restore that virtual machine either to the same same virtual machines, or either to be a different virtual machines, right? And so is possible through this Azure backup?
Well, it is certainly possible, and I think probably I will need to sync up with you offline, to give, more detailed answers. So I would request if you can post that question related to Azure Backup in our Azure Talk forum. We'll be able to
Sure,
provide you
I will
more
do that.
details.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. So I see Haris has question. No, Haris. Aditya, there will not be any peering by default. No points having peering. Inbound, outbound, we explained. Priority, we explained. NSG can be called ACL. No, Ravi Raj. ACL and NSG are two different things. So, in access control list is more so like for the endpoints, whereas the NSG is for the subnet and it applies to the network card. So both these two are different technologies.
Okay,
Uh,
Neeraj, thank you.
you know, got my answer. Azure management can be used. Okay. So I think outbound somebody explained. Thank you for that. Safal has question. Can you tell us a little more about load balancer and Azure Application Gateway in relation to NSG. Well, load balancer and Azure Application Gateway. So from networking perspective, it works at different layers. Load balancer is like layer 4. Sorry, if you're not speaking, you can please put yourself on. Thank you. So that the load balancer is a layer 4, the TCP layer, it works at that, whereas Azure Application Gateway is a layer 7 HTTP and HTTPS, and it load balances your HTTP traffic. It also works as a reverse proxy. So it will terminate the connection to your web server, and it can do that. In fact, it also supports SSL offloading. So that's one feature of Application Gateway. Plus, Application Gateway also offers additional service called WAF, Web Application Firewall. So you can do that if you really want to. You can use WAF for inspecting the incoming traffic. All right, so we'll move into the demo. Lalit, you can go ahead. I do see some questions from Ravi. Please feel free to post this question in your AzureTalk forum, the chat forum. There are a lot of people who will be able to help you with your question, which is, for your free Azure account. So Lalit, you can go ahead and share your screen.
Sure, I'm going to share my screen. Do let me know once you are able to view.
Sure.
So as you know, I have already created a VM, which is we can just look it out my VMs, which is I'll have, and this option has been already discussed in my previous demo. And then let me just go and talk about more into the networking, which is how you're going and assigning in the static IP and all. So let's say when you just click on the networking, there is an attach network interface. If you wanted to attach another network interface, which is you have already created in VM, but you wanted to attach a network interface with this, you can while clicking on this, you just attach the new network interface. But before that, you need to remove this interface and then detach this network interface card, NIC card, and then attach a new network interface card. So let's say this is the network interface card. So once you click on this, what are the features would be there? So basically, these are the basic features. You have a location subscription, and the source group is an important feature which is in the private IP address. So it will collect that IP address from your virtual network and the subnet, and the public IP address would be shown over here. The network security group which I have attached, and as you talked about. Here you can get an activity log and the access management, which I have already talked about more in this part. And let's come into directly to the IP configuration. Here the IP configuration, which is either you can enable the IP forwarding setting, which you want to forward some traffic to the another network or the virtual network and all, and you can utilize that feature. Or else if you wanted to put in static IP address over here, those IP addresses are still in dynamic. But make sure when you put in dynamic, and if you reboot an VM, your IP address would get changed. So I would say don't use that dynamic IP address to the production environment, because whenever you're running such a web applications or any other applications which you are, this is really critical. But let's say if your VMs is got by mistake, and if it is rebooted or something, then your IP address would be changed. So always, just click on the static and save this IP, this configuration. So your IP address would be, save this in statics. And how you're going and changing the same things would be for your how you're going and changing for your public IP. So let us save the settings here, and okay, it's not allowing me. So once this network interface will save the static IP address as it changes as a static IP address, you will sure. Then if you can see in the DNS configuration, what is DNS server? The DNS settings, what is there in the DNS server, that either it will took as a Azure Cloud DNS server, or it will or what will happen that you can inheritance from your virtual network, or if you wanted to add in custom in the sense, let's say I have an Azure for you.com domain. I wanted to utilize this, but the IP address of the DNS server which you wanted to add the IP address or the DNS server host name, which is hosted in your own premises or you have a custom domain and all. Basically, those DNS server which you can add it, but make sure that those settings you are going to do is it will not if it is not correct, it won't allow you to connect to the internet. But anyhow, if it is, the DNS will be available to resolve your name. So the similar way in this NIC card, what are the NSG would be configured. So if you wanted to change the NSG, just click over here. The NSG would be a have to NSG I can enable, or the one NSG network security group. One NSG can be attached to the many VMs, or almost I think the limit would be 200 VMs. So you can attach to the, if you have for one project you have 100 servers, the same rules has to be applied. You no need to create in different rules. Create in one NSG rule and attach this NSG to 200 VMs, which saving that 200 NSG as a cost. You can say that enablement of effort and other part. And then what would be the so this is here. And then if you wanted to allow and change the public IP from the statics, just click on the public IP and click on the configuration, and here's change, make it static. This will always help out you. Here is inbound and outbound rule. How inbound and the outbound rule. How you wanted to add an inbound and outbound rule. So by default you have in custom services. What are custom services? You have an FTP, SSH, SMTP, DNS, HTTP, LDAP, SMTP services, RDP. So basically MongoDB, and you wanted to allow those services to be connect to your backend services or the SQL services, MS SQL services. So basically, if you just select the port, MySQL, the port is 3306.
Alpesh has a question that is public IP static is charged. Yes, so if you go with static public IP, you charge differently than the dynamic public IP. Go ahead.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So basically, this is the name of MySQL. If you wanted to allow, I'll just click in OK, and that would be same. I'll just create another custom one. If you just click on here, here is an any means anything and anywhere. You're just going, you are allowing, you're not securing a view, you're allowing any traffic. Why my in this subscription has any rule? Because it's a test subscription and I will be using for my AzureTalk demo and few of our trainings. Purpose, this is the reason I just choose. But in the corporate or as an organization, that rule shouldn't be exist until unless it is required. So if it is not be any that whatever the IP address, you can put the source IP address and the port range. If you put in a star, it could be any port. Okay, if you wanted to allow and port number 80 here, and the destination would be your IP address. Let's say 10.0.5 as in 4, right? And I wanted to allow this to 10.0.5, and the port range would be, let's say I wanted to send the traffic from 80 and reach to the 80, and the priority which I wanted to select is in 108, and the here could be you put in name and then select OK. So once this is done, the energy would be added, but I wanted to talk about more in this. Here is a service tag. What is service tag? Service tag is a Microsoft services tag, which is for internet. There's a service called internet. So it will allow your VM to connect to those specific internet, and it will allow your VMs. Then you have a virtual network. If you wanted to allow a few ports within your virtual network, okay, then you can click on virtual network, okay, and the destination port would be this, or it can be virtual network. Virtual network to virtual network, port 80 would be allowed. So in that particular virtual network, if you have 100 VMs, 200, 500 VMs, that can be communicated on port 80 or port 443 or 3389, whatever it is. Then you have an Azure Traffic Manager. There's a separate services you wanted to allow your specific VM to connect to the Traffic Manager. There's Traffic Manager services. And then storage services, which is storage and the SQL services, the service pack which is recently launched by the Microsoft, which you have in storage Australia and with the region, and the SQL tags would be available for you. So if you wanted to allow a specific SQL services for region wise, you just go and select those services which will be help you in that. So as I have been said, and apart from that, don't need to put any if you aware of this. And if you wanted to deny those port number 80, deny in complete virtual network, select deny, and then configure the rule based on your organization standard. So as Neeraj has already mentioned, this is in receiver. Inbound rule is a receiver, and the outbound rule is a sender. So make sure. So basically, whatever the rules you wanted to allow or deny, and you can play with it, would be there. And then this is from the NC prospect. And let's come to the disk, how you're going and adding your disk or editing your disk. If you wanted to add in, let's say someone has requested, okay, I wanted to add some 5 terabyte disk. Okay, you wanted to add in 5 terabytes, go here, add on disk, create disk, and give the name of disk AzureTalk demo. Either you wanted to use an external resource group, which is in standard disk type. If you have already a snapshot disk, which the backup you have created or a snapshot you have created, then it will give, because I don't have any snapshot disk, it will be, that means the backup disk you wanted to attach to your VMs. So the snapshot storage blob, if I wanted to allow a storage blob, which the source of blob, you just click on browse. These are the blobs, the data which is there. You wanted to allow, I'll say, okay, I wanted to allow this, and there will be a container which disk you wanted to allow, the boot diagnostic disk. Okay, I want to allow this disk. It will just go and again talk, or what are the things I can select. So basically, it's not a disk, it's just a log which I just select. The services, if you have any data, disk, anything, the container which you wanted to blob, storage blob, basically the VSD path which you wanted to allow. Either it could be in Windows OS, Linux, or anything you wanted to connect, you can. And I'll just select it none, and I wanted to add in 1 terabyte. But let's say if I can add it in terabyte, no, it will only allow the 4095. So only the 4 terabyte. There's a limit of the data disk to attach to the VM would be in 4 terabyte. Okay. So as this VMs is a standard VM, and so that can be IOPS would be 500, and the throughput would be this. But if you create a VM with the standard, like from the premium disk, IOPS maximum IOPS will get in 7,500 per disk. It's again based on P3, P50 or P20 disk. So based on your disk regions, and also once you to file, I wanted add, I'll just create a disk. So once the disk is getting created, the validation would be done. So it will take another 2 minutes to get and complete. And then meanwhile, if you have any questions, you can ask.
Yeah, I had some doubt regarding this. So let's say I'm having a file server and I need 10 TB of space. So how I can achieve that?
So Ravi, you can, so by default, I think, what's the limit, 4 TB or 5 TB?
It's in 5 terabyte for file server.
Yeah, so I mean, if it is, you can go up to 4096 GB, which is like around 5 terabyte of data. But if you need 4 TB, whatever it is, I'm sorry, I'm unable to recall the exact size. 5 terabyte. Now, if you need to more than that, Ravi, in that case, what you can do is you can use storage space, which is a Windows technology. And in case of Linux, it's Linux LVM, Linux Volume Manager, where you can combine multiple disks as one storage pool, and you can create storage and the volume out of using that. That you can do. So you can use storage space.
Thank you.
Yeah. And even though if you wanted to create into different files here, then that will allow 5 terabytes, and that up to, for standard would be 500 TB, and for premium it will be in 64 terabyte. But premium, that file server will not be supported, but in standard you can as nearest is providing solution, so 500 terabytes you can attach and utilize those things.
Thank
So,
you.
so once your VM or the disk would be created, so
Yeah,
make sure.
I think it's 4 terabyte, Lalit, for the VM disk. It's not 5.
Yeah, for VM disk is right, it's in 4 terabyte. Yeah. So the disk you can attach the 4 terabyte, but when you just create a volume inside the VM, you can merge those VMs and create a one volume.
Yeah.
So is my LUN is 0, and then this is the size of the VM. This is storage account, and you can set the permissions over here, the read only or read write, whatever the permission you wanted. If you wanted to detach this disk, you can just detach. So make sure any disk you created and that will be pending for a longer, like 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, that will be a cost. So whenever you're going and deleting any VM, so make sure all the detached disk or the attached disk that also be going to be deleted. Or if you want, like, if purposefully, if you wanted to make it separate for those disks, then yes, obviously you can keep those disks. But when you delete in VM, the instance would be get deleted, but none of other resources would get deleted. So your data would be same. I'm just updating this things, and let's come to scale up and scale down. So now let me just show my VM here. So now I have created a size of standard A1 and 1 VP CPU. But now I wanted to enable my VM to be D size here. So that I can just select here, and it will start and resizing my VM. So I'm just increasing my VM's capacity, and I can downgrade. So let's say if you just go about and talk about the extension here whatever the extension you will have, the monitoring agent, which I have provisioned Microsoft monitoring agent, which is automatically when you create a VM would be there, and the new resources like the custom script, BCS, PowerShell, Dishard, and couple more other things which is there. If you just load more, the Steam services, Rapid, and couple more other custom extension which is Microsoft is supporting. So agent Windows Server for monitoring site 24/7. If you wanted to allow this, you have to create, and there will be any charges for it. That might be paid services. So it depends like what are the things you want. Now let's come into the availability set, which is already we have taken into the last session and discussed more. And here you can get the configuration. So you wanted to registered as a managed identity services. You wanted to register this particular VM to the Azure Active Directory, and just now you can see the resize of virtual machine is done. So
One question here.
yeah. So now I have a D1 1 week or CPU 3.5 GB RAM.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
please. Yes, please. Yeah, please ask your question.
Okay, so you were talking about like resizing of the virtual machines, right?
Right.
So can it is possible to do the resizing of virtual machine like if an instance size of A series to D or D series to DS V2 series, or is there any restriction is there?
No, there is a restriction. There is certainly a restriction, and I can maybe pull up that article and share with you. When you do the auto scaling, you go from the same series to same series. You may change series, but not all the series is possible.
Yeah, basically, if you just choose a basic series, then you won't be able to upgrade to the standard series.
Correct.
But yes, if it is in a standard series, if you wanted to allow, you can upgrade those VMs. And you can choose, like you can see that earlier I have an A1 series which is in the standard, and I changed it to D series, which is uh,
Yeah.
which you can see
So there's
like
certainly
it's
some
in
restriction, but you have, you have potential to, go across the series, but there is restriction for sure.
yeah, right, right, Neeraj. So as this is my
So
demo
there
account,
is,
the demo.
yeah,
Mhm.
there is a question from Pranav. Scaling VM, do we need to turn off the VM? No, you don't need to, but your VM will get rebooted.
Yes. So
And then
I'm
there was
coming
a,
to the same point, which yeah, I'm
yeah,
coming to the same point, which Pranav is raised. So basically, the best what I understand, what I worked, the best practice is shut down the VM and do the resizing. So what will happen if any operations is running when you are doing a resizing of your VM, then there might be a chances that those operations has got corrupted, those files got corrupted. So make sure you shut down the VM, do the resizing, and then restart the VMs. Would be the best practices. Because Microsoft can take care of the host level things. But if something goes wrong due to a reboot of your VMs inside the OS, would be a problem. So make sure save your work, take in downtime, shut down your VM, resize, and then come back. Hardly it will take 10 to 15 minutes while you are doing a resizing.
yeah. And Ranjit had a question about disk, and Ranjit, probably I'll have to, that's a very interesting question, and I don't have answer on top of my head. So Ranjit question is about the disk caching, right? So host caching that you enable for disk. His question is, can we enable that, once we have created the disk and once the VM is using it? Or do we have to, like, detach or stop the VM to enable the host caching? So I really don't have an answer. If Lalit, if you know it, otherwise we'll have
So,
to get back to you, Ranjit.
yeah. So basically, the host caching you can, even though like I have just gone through one blog, like you can enable it if the VMs runs over there, then you can enable the host caching. But certainly, it is in few of the cases it is not possible that you have to enable it from the when you're just enabling it. So again, we have to
So basically, if a VM is started and using this disk, can we enable host caching? I think that's the question that Ranjit is.
yeah, I
Or,
think that you can do that. I
okay,
think you can try once. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, if that answer is yes, yes.
All
It
right.
is both. It is both side, Neeraj. It is something like if I enable the host caching, like
Mm-hmm.
for an example, when we are doing for best practices for domain controller, you should not enable host caching.
Correct, correct. You should know.
But yeah, by mistake, it has been enabled where we missed to check that option, and this system is running right now. So I want to disable the host caching. So what should I do? This is the same scenario for SQL servers as well. So how should we do that? Or does it support it to like once the VM has been running or once the VM is started, then can I shut down the VM and change the host caching, or once it's been up and running or deployed? No, it is not possible. But that is what.
Yeah. So the best practice would be shut down the VM if you want to really disable the caching would be disable it because if the VMs is running and if you just try and disable it, let's say operations is performed, but you don't know what are the changes is going to happen as we are not the server is not in our data center or something. So the best practice is whenever you wanted to enable it, you can anyhow you can enable it from the subscription. But make sure that you can take in downtime and follow the best practice and enable the host caching. And if you wanted to disable it, you can take a 2 minutes of downtime and disable the host caching. It's freshly start and then it's know that your VM know what operations has to be performed and how it will be performed. But in between, if something is running in the VMs from the Azure and from the operation and everything, if you enable it, because all the capacity and the data read and write operations are running on this part, then might be a cause and some problem of crashing.
Yeah, so I think you cannot change it, Ranjit. Actually, I just checked in the portal on my running VM. So basically, what's going to happen is if you do that, it will detach the disk and restart the VM. So certainly that's not something you want to do that on a running VM. So we probably will not be able to do that. And if you really want to do that, shut down the VM or be ready that your VM will reboot.
Right. Thank you, Neeraj. For a quick check.
Oh.
Yeah. So now it's just coming to auto shut down the operation activities, which is my favorite. So let's say if I wanted to
So
shut down my VM.
this auto shutdown is part of dev test, right? But it's only auto shutdown, but not the
Right.
start.
Not the start. For
Okay.
start, we need to create an automation account.
Yeah, I think that's the difference between the dev test and dev test lab environment. You have auto shutdown as well as auto start both.
Right.
Okay.
So whenever I just wanted to shut down, at what time you wanted to shut down? At say it's 9 o'clock. Not now. That will get shut down. I would say 1 a.m.
Yeah, I think I use this. I have configured my own personal subscription because I want to save money. So I've configured for 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And in case I
And
forgot to turn off my VM, it does that for me.
right. So you just it's just really nice features. Save a lot of money
Yes.
in the current environment. So if you're running in the scenario, let me just tell you that, like if you're running in some development VMs or test or UAT VMs, just let's say after 1 o'clock, no one work. So you wanted to turn it off. You just enable this, and before turn off, you wanted to send an email, or you have some webhook URL you wanted to show it over here. You can just go and configure and see those. Let's say I want to.
So Pranav has a question about the scaling. Can we configure dynamic? I don't think today we can do that dynamic scaling. You can do scale out basically using scale sets. But as far as dynamically changing the series from one to another, that's called scaling up, increasing the power. I don't think that's possible today. But what you can do is you can have a webhook triggered based on the CPU utilization, and that webhook can call a script which can resize your VM. But again, remember this will result in downtime. But yeah, you can do that. But natively, it's not available. But you can do it through the script through webhook. Pranav.
Yeah. So I have saved my the downtime which I wanted to auto shut down here. And then if you come with the backup, which is there's in two ways I have already told. Both the ways would be the same. Like you wanted to create a recovery vault. Either you can enable the backup directly from here, and I wanted to give the name was start demo, and then this is my demo one, and then the policies which would be there. I wanted to take in backup daily, the backup frequency which is there, daily or weekly. You can schedule it. If the VM is not that much important, you can take it up weekly. But I wanted to schedule it in weekly. What time I wanted to set up? I just wanted to set up at 1 a.m. What is the time? UTC or based on your region, you can just go and select the region and select over there. The retention period would be daily backup for 180 days, or you wanted to enable for more than that. And then the retention periods for backup. For backup point of view. So weekly it will when it will take the weekly backup. Okay, Sunday it will take the complete backup and retain for 104 weeks, and yearly, and then retention backup restoration point, and the backup point would be for 60 months, and I wanted to restore for 1,000 years. I can do that. I'm not sure how many zero it will allow. Okay, so even it will allow you to double nine years. It means almost 10,000 years. So Microsoft is providing this facility. So I wanted to by default would be 10 years. So if you wanted to really keep some critical data or retention for your VMs would be enabled over here. And let me just create
Okay.
this default VMs. Yes, yes.
Sorry, so they're saying there's a question from Ravi Raj about storage encryption. Sorry, I missed it. Ravi, maybe you can speak up.
Yeah.
Sure.
So the question is like, let's say I'm creating one disk as my D drive on the VM.
Right.
So as a best practice, what security team says that the disk should be encrypted one.
Correct.
So on AWS, I know how I can do it, but on Azure, I really do not know.
So there are two ways to achieve it. One is you can enable SSE, which is storage service encryption. So in that case, the entire storage account gets encrypted, and any volume that you create or any VHD that you create will be encrypted. Any new VHD basically, from the point on you have enabled SSE. So that's one way to provide encryption at rest. At my organization, we use that also. Plus, the second is Azure Disk Encryption, which I think Kriti has also pasted in the chat. So you can use Azure Disk Encryption, which is a volume level encryption. So you say that I have C drive, which is OS, then D drive, which is the temp drive, and then E drive, and F drive are my data drive. I only want to encrypt E drive, not all. Right? If I enable SSE, it will encrypt everything at storage account level. If you need selective encryption of certain drives or certain volume, in that case, you can use Azure Disk Encryption, which works in conjunction with Azure Key Vault. And SSE today doesn't, it supports Microsoft managed key, but if you want to use your own customer managed key, it's in public preview. And for that, again, if you decide to go with customer managed key for SSE, you will have to use Azure Key Vault to store that key.
Thank you, Neeraj.
All right, so Alpesh has a question. How many copies of the backup are created in Azure? I don't think you have the ability to set the differential backup or incremental. I think it's handled internally by Azure. But Lalit, please.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, which it depends on your, if you create an LRS account or the standard disk.
Yeah, that's
the
good.
backup would be stored in your local storage account, which has the 3 copy. But if you're using your storage account as in GRS, okay,
then it will be 6 copies.
It will be 6 copies. That's how the Azure will work.
Yeah, so Alpesh, I think it will depend on the kind of storage account that you have chosen when you're creating your Azure Recovery Services Vault. If you've chosen LRS, it's 3 copies. If it is geo-redundant storage, then it is 6 copies. Okay, so that was one point.
Yeah.
And the second question was, can we set differential backup? I don't think you can really do that, but I think Microsoft takes incremental backup.
Yeah, you can't do that. So basically, when I just create a VM backup, it is still it is in progress, and I'm just fetching in data, and then once the data and the services would be installed, it will given over here. So the LRS and the GRS would be here. So based on your disk where it is created,
Lalit,
once your backup would be started, would be here.
Sorry, Lalit, quick time check. We have 11 minutes, so you want to cover other update tracking and inventory and
right. Let me just cover it up. So what is an update management? So basically these features I have already enabled it. So what will happen? It will just go and check the update managements, how it will be, the VMs are getting and updated, the patches. So you can see those are the defined updates would be there. This is the classification updates when this published. This is the KB, either that is required you or not, the missing updates, update deployments and the scheduled deployments. You can manage the multiple machine. You can schedule the deployment from here. Once you click on schedule, okay, it will ask basically the updates, which KB number would be there, and then you need to select the times and the maintenance window would be there, and the name. So once you deploy, click OK, that patches would be deployed automatically at that time. So basically from the VM, you can, manage almost all the things, and then the scope and maintenance would be set it for your particular VMs. This
So
is,
if
it's really a nice features.
yeah, I think this is more on like a mini SCCM, right? So using SCCM, System Center Configuration Manager, we would do the update and patch management. So at least now here you can use that. It's smaller scale, not as like as big as SCCM, but at least if you have a small environment and you want to do that, you can leverage this feature. I think it is still in preview, right? That's why it shows on the top. It's preview feature.
Right. Here you can, segregate critical security and update roll-off features, service packs, definition, Windows tool, and basically other if you wanted to, really segregate. So these are the patches which is missing in my VMs. And these are the KB. These are the other critical, and the security patches is nothing 0.0. So mini SCCM as we has told. So here and then into the inventory preview. So basically in inventory preview, it will show your inventory. So I have a Microsoft agent which is installed here. This is the version and the files which is there. This isn't C user, this is the file. So all the files would be, the path would be there. And then you can configure the Windows registry. So as of now, no changes in the registry, so it won't show. But new addition of any registry or anything would be shown over here for last 24 hours, not before that. So these are the services, the Windows services which stopped, which after the VM, these services get installed or automatically the app services. And these are the, so you can check those services which is there. There's a 24 services which is what are the services are running, disabled. So it's really a nice feature that you don't want to go inside the VM and look at what my services are running. How my SQL services are running.
Yeah, that's really good feature, right? Today we have to log in and to generate a list of services. Now I can just look at the VM if there is any troubleshooting steps to be followed. I can see that if my service is up and running. It's good. And do you know how frequently this data is collected?
It's for 24 hours, last 24 hours.
No. So that is, it renders it, right? So last 24. But how frequently it polls the VM to get this information? 30 seconds, 1 minute, 20 minutes? Like, how accurate is this data till what point in time?
Yeah, I think that's really a nice question, but I have to check it.
Yeah, even I don't know.
Because, I couldn't find in the Microsoft documents, but yeah, it will be there. So let me just
maybe we have some edit settings.
Yeah,
edit settings on the top. Maybe is it customizable? Maybe.
You see if you have that.
Yes, the edit settings would be there. So the Windows files.
But these settings are to collect what you want to collect, right?
Right. So if you wanted to add something over here, the custom group, you need to enter the path and what path file, the directory data you wanted to correct. And sudo. Basically, this is
actually I'm looking for. I'm looking for how frequently. What's the frequency of data collection?
The schedule is not given.
Yeah, that's right.
The frequency I think would be in 15 minutes by default, because by default the OMS would every 15 minutes it will collect the data. So by default should be in 15 minutes. Yeah, but as per an OMS, because in every 15 minutes OMS services has been refreshed, so the data would be collected every 15 minutes. But 80% is confirmed, but 20% has to be come on.
Yeah, I think
because in this COM it was like 15 minutes, right? Mm-hmm. When an agent will sync the data to the server.
Yeah, probably it will inherit the same settings of the OMS agent. So if OMS agent is pushing out the data every 15 minutes, so this will be as recent as your 14th minute. So yeah.
Right.
All right. So this is inventory. So then let's see what is there in change tracking.
Change tracking. Okay. Yes. So basically, change tracking would be show the events for your events registry and the software and the Windows services. So you can have the system host diagnostic. This is machine Windows services has been modified. These are the three things has
Okay.
been
So
for last 20
does
hours.
it show me the current state versus what was the old data and what is the new data? Does it show me that? Let's say if anybody makes any change.
Yes, I don't think so. It will be shown to you,
So
but
if
what
you
were the
click on
recently
let's say
changes?
if you click on this system host file, if you click on that, does it give us details?
Yes.
Okay,
So
so yeah, okay.
just
So this has the details. It says service status stop. Probably any file changes that we'll do, it will have the
yeah, yeah, whatever the file changes, and like let's say if it's in stop, then someone is start running. It is showing there is no changes. So in those field, if there is any changes or someone is if it is, let's say if it is set as a manual and someone is started as an automatic,
hmm
the services, would the changes would be reflected to your VM, and that has to be shown. Okay, the value before the changes would be a manual, but after the changes, what is the value over here? So yes, after all, you can get what the value is before and what the value of now. So in this, you can see the first value which is in the stopped state. Now after the when this changes is in running, so basically you can check over here that what is the previous value and what is now for the services.
Yeah. Okay, good. That's a really nice feature. Now I can track what changes has happened to my system, and this information is not on the object that is out on the VM, but inside the VM. So
Right.
what's happening inside my VM?
So three services, and if you wanted to click on events, so these are the events has been created, the read write operations, who did it, our cloud web, this me, who did it, all the changes. You can track down all the changes, who did it, the category is administrator, the caller ID is our cloud web, the information succeeded, what action has to be taken, the operations ID, what resources, event ID, everything, what all the action has been taken. So you have to
Yeah.
this is the authorizations things which what changes would be there and
So Lloyd,
the type of changes.
we have last
Yeah.
3 minutes, so probably I'll take a couple of questions. I see Pranav has a question. Update management, do you have to configure for each VM, or there's an option to manage update for all VMs? You can do that for all the VMs. In fact, if you go into the update management for me a little quickly, Lalit, if you click on update management, uh, there you have option on the
Yes.
top where it says, manage it or some option was
Just
there. Yeah,
ah yes, you can manage the multiple VMs from here, Sims.
correct. So
There's
you
an
can do
option in
that.
the top.
Yeah, you can do that.
Yes.
You
To
really don't
manage
have to.
multiple machines. So whatever the machines you have, you can comes into the OMS dashboard, the proper OMS dashboard. And you want to add in VMs, click here, add, and you can I just want to add
Yeah.
this
And
VM.
you can also use scripting, if you really want to enable it, you can use PowerShell
Right.
scripting to do that.
Enable. Just wanted to enable. I just enabled it. Yeah.
And then Safal has, when was this feature introduced? I don't know which feature you're referring to, Safal. So, probably I can track it. You can also go and subscribe to Microsoft updates through RSS feed, and that's what I do. And from there I get to know immediately. So there you can search when was this feature, made in public preview.
Yeah. Needless the last 2 minutes, I was just wanted to enable the ASR. So
Yeah.
basically, once you click on ASR, so basically this is the things which you're getting is an unmanaged disk. But if you just click in ASR here, this VM as this is comes with the managed disk, right? So if you wanted to enable in ASR in this part, disaster recovery, it won't allow me say this features is not available for the managed disk, but that is in the applications for the virtual machine is not available for this, but it is available uh, for unmanaged disk. So here I wanted to select in the source group a name where you wanted to automatically South Central India as it's showing the paired region over here. If you can see this track down would be there, and then this is the VNet, the storage settings. I wanted to create the same storage and all. I wanted to show the replications, how the replications, the recovery vault, what were the replication policies, new for 24 hours, and then enable for AzureTalk Domo, or you wanted to create another new storage account would be you can select those also, and then recovery vault this thing, and then you need to click in enable replications, which will automatically enable and move your complete replications with the VNet and virtual network would be created into the south central areas, which is would help you. So I'm done with my demo. Let's hand over to Neeraj.
Yeah, so I mean, if maybe I'll take a couple of questions, and after that we'll call it off because we're 1 minute past. So if anybody has any last minute question, please feel free to ask.
I have doubt regarding this Azure site recovery. Okay, let's say I configure one DR from south to like some other location. How frequent like security group and network setting will be replicated?
It's not replicated, right? So
I-
only when you configure these ASR, it's only replicating your VHD. It's not replicating,
Sec- NSG?
no, it's not. You have to have a recovery plan where you will create automated virtual network subnet and NSG and all those things you have to do it.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Right? So that's what it is. So I mean, it's not it's basically replicating your VHD. All right. Any other questions?
Neeraj, Deva here.
Yeah, they
Actually, I have a question regarding this VMs that we create. Are they accessible from internet by default? Like I have a free subscription and I created some VMs and I am able to access them from internet.
correct. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Go ahead.
So, likewise, if any organization creates their VMs, so are they accessible to anyone on the internet? So, how does that work? And I see we have public subnet and private subnet.
Sure. I'll
Yeah.
try to explain. Yeah, so by default, there are two things which come into the picture. When you create a VM, by default, it also gets a public, dynamically assigned public IP address. By that virtue, it is out on internet. So if you have right credential, you can connect that. Actually, it's reachable. But the next question is, once it is on internet, can I reach it on 80 port? Can I reach it on a different port? No, you cannot, except 3389 by default. Microsoft and Lalit showed you, the rules that we have default rules. So 3389 is by default. Microsoft adds it for inbound. So because of the public IP that it's receiving and because of the NSG rule which gets attached to its network card, it's accessible. If you want to block it for an organization, you will not assign it a public IP address, and you will make sure that RDP port doesn't accept. The source should not be any, or source should not be 0.0, which is internet. That you can do.
Okay. Yeah. And what is the difference between this public subnet and private subnet in the VNet that we create? I see two options are there.
Not two options. So that's you will, based on the NSG rules that you configure, you can categorize and you can call it a public subnet or private subnet. So if your NSG has inbound rule to accept traffic on different ports like 443, 80, or SFTP 22, 23, any port that if you are ready to accept those traffic, then that will become a public subnet, you can call it, and with traffic.
Okay.
Whereas a private subnet, you block everything. You're not receiving any traffic, so inbound traffic is blocked, whereas outbound traffic you allow. So that becomes private. So that's depending on how you
Okay.
configure NSG, you can,
Okay.
configure your.
Okay. Yeah. And one more question, Neeraj, about the storage service encryption, SSE.
Mm-hmm.
So for these Exchange and SQL servers, do we use that service or?
You're free. You're free to use it. If you want to use it, you can use it without any issues, without any problem,
Mhm.
because it's transparent to VM. VM doesn't really have to interact with encryption system. It's handled at the storage or the SAN level, if I have to call you. It's like, block level encryption. Whereas Azure Disk
Oh,
Encryption is where OS interacts with Azure Keyboard, retrieves the BitLocker key, and then decrypts it. Whereas in SSC, it doesn't consume any CPU cycle at all. Whereas AD does consume some CPU cycles.
okay. So why I'm asking is like for Exchange, we have this mailbox stores, right?
Mhm.
So, and they'll be accessible by the many users.
Yes.
So will that cause any issues?
No,
Because they.
No,
Mhm.
it won't cause any issues if you just go and enable it from the storage level. But
No,
there
it
might
will
be a
not. It will
chances.
not. It will not
Yeah.
cause any problem because those users. Remember, SSE is for your volume level encryption. It's nothing to do with the user or authorized user. Whoever has access to your Exchange, whoever is allowed to access Exchange mailboxes, they will be able to access it.
Okay.
The user don't interact with the encryption method or methodology, not at all.
So one question
Okay.
on top of it. So once you reboot the VM, the SSE, the drive encryption, the volume encryption, it does take a lot of time to get it back, or it comes with the VM when it comes with the VM. Like
So SSE, you don't require VM reboot.
no. But if you reboot a VM, like
Oh no,
for
it
example,
doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't take a lot of time for SSE. It's quick.
So
okay,
basically, how there is an on-premises PGP encryption methodology, right, where you put the password and the VMs comes up. So almost it will be the same. So once your VMs is totally encrypted, that just means encrypted. And you reboot and do whatever it is, it will take same time. Nothing much time to be rebooted.
Yeah, I
okay.
think we are 8 minutes past, so I think this was the last question that we have taken, and I thank you everybody for joining our session today, and we'll have more sessions upcoming. And in next week, probably there will be slight deviation, and I will be conducting a session on for Microsoft Certified Trainer and what are the benefits and how to really become an MCT. So once again, thank you very much for taking out time today and joining our session. It was really fruitful, and I hope that you find it useful. And we will upload the recording of the sessions onto our YouTube channel. So please do feel free to subscribe, like, and comment on youtube.com/c/AzureTalk, and also spread words about our Azure Talk forum, and so that we have more people part of this community and we can help each other. And also I request everybody to be an active participant because at the end of the day it's a community. So I'm looking for some guest speakers as well. So you can register on the link that I have shared, and if you really think that you can share knowledge with the community, you will have all the support from us. And it's not that you have to run the show. We will help you in all the way, and so that way we will be able to share the knowledge and share the workload that currently we share among our Azure Talk core group members. So once again, I say thank you everybody for joining our session today, and we'll look forward to talking to you again in our next session that is on Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for
Thank you,
joining us, sir.
Niraj. Thank